I never thought a simple WhatsApp status could reveal so much, but that day, everything changed. It was a regular evening, and I was scrolling through my phone when I saw her status pop up. My wife's WhatsApp status. At first, I didn't think much of it. People post all kinds of things these days. But the moment I read it, a chill ran down my spine. It was cryptic, sharp, and somehow felt like a message meant for me, even though she didn't say a word directly. She rolled her eyes when I asked her about it, brushing it off like it was no big deal. But I could tell something was off. The way she avoided my gaze, the sudden coldness in her tone, it all added up to something I wasn't ready to face. There was tension in the air, something unspoken, hanging between us like a thick fog. I wanted to dig deeper but feared what I might uncover. Our marriage had its ups and downs, sure, like any other, but we always managed to stay connected. Or so I thought. That status was a crack in the foundation I didn't see coming. Was she hiding something? Was this a warning? The words she chose weren't random. They were pointed, and I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, not knowing whether I would fall into heartbreak or find a way back. I kept replaying that moment in my head, the way she rolled her eyes, the vague words in that status. It was unlike her to be so indirect, especially when something was bothering her. Usually, we talked things through, no matter how small or awkward the issue was. But this time, she seemed distant, almost like she was shutting a door between us and refusing to open it. I tried to brush it off at first, telling myself maybe it was just a bad day or some stress from work. But something inside me kept nagging, that feeling you get when you know something's wrong but you don't want to admit it. We had been married for 5 years. In the beginning, everything felt easy and natural. We laughed a lot, shared dreams, and made plans for the future. Over time, the routine of life crept in, but I always thought we were strong enough to handle whatever came our way. Our jobs kept us busy, sure, but we always found time for each other. Until now. Looking back, I realized there had been small signs I didn't want to notice. Missed calls she never returned, late nights with the phone tucked away, moments when her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. But that WhatsApp status was different. It wasn't just a fleeting mood or a random quote. It felt like a message wrapped in frustration or even disappointment. It read something like, "Sometimes silence says more than words." It hit me hard because it felt personal, as if she was talking about us without saying it out loud. I wanted to ask her directly, but the moment felt too fragile. The last time I tried, she shrugged me off with a casual, "It's nothing, don't worry." But I couldn't stop worrying. What if there was someone else? What if she was unhappy and hiding it? My mind raced with possibilities, each one worse than the last. The worst part was the silence between us, that growing distance that neither of us wanted to admit. One evening, I decided to sit down and try again. I told her I noticed she wasn't herself lately and asked if something was bothering her. She looked at me for a moment, her eyes tired and guarded. Then she changed the subject, moving the conversation away like a shadow slipping through my fingers. It made me feel helpless, like the more I tried to reach her, the farther she drifted. I started paying attention to the little things, the way she checked her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, the way she became protective over her messages. I never invaded her privacy, but the tension made me want to find answers. I didn't want to accuse her or make assumptions, but the feeling of being left out, of not knowing, was eating me alive. I thought about talking to my friends, but I wasn't sure what I could say. How do you explain that your wife's WhatsApp status made you question everything? People might think I was overreacting or being paranoid. But anyone who has ever felt that kind of silent fear knows it's not easy to just ignore. Days passed, and the tension didn't ease. The home that once felt warm started to feel cold and unfamiliar. We were living in the same space but moving like strangers. The laughter was gone, replaced by quiet looks and unanswered questions. I kept wondering if she was waiting for me to discover something, or if she was already prepared to walk away. And then, one afternoon, I caught a glimpse of another status. This time, it was a photo with a caption that didn't feel like it belonged to our world anymore. The words on the screen stabbed at me again. words about feeling trapped, about needing to escape. My heart sank. Was this just a phase, or was it the beginning of the end? The questions piled up, but the answers stayed locked behind her silence. The silence between us grew heavier, like an invisible wall that neither of us dared to break. I found myself walking on eggshells, unsure whether to speak up or stay quiet. Every time I tried to bring up the topic, she deflected or changed the subject, and I started wondering if pushing her would only push her further away. It was like living with a stranger who shared my house and my name but not my thoughts. One evening, after another long day, I noticed her phone buzz while we were sitting quietly in the living room. She glanced at it quickly and slipped it into her pocket, avoiding my eyes. That small action spoke volumes. It wasn't about trust or privacy anymore. It was about secrets kept just out of reach. I didn't want to invade her space, but the feeling of being shut out was unbearable. The trust we had built over years was slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know how to stop it. There was also the question of what had changed. Had something happened that I didn't know about? I thought about the people around us, friends, family, coworkers. Had someone entered her life in a way I wasn't aware of? Or was it something else, a silent struggle she was fighting alone? I tried to think back on any signs, any moments where she seemed distant, but I didn't understand why. Meanwhile, my own emotions were a storm. I felt anger bubbling up, but it wasn't directed at her exactly. It was at the situation, the unknown, the gap that grew wider every day. I was scared of losing her, scared of being left behind without answers. But I also knew that if I showed too much fear, it might push her away even more. In the background, life went on. Work kept me busy, but even there, my mind was elsewhere. I found myself distracted in meetings, replaying conversations in my head, wondering if she was thinking about me or about something, or someone else. I caught myself checking my phone more than usual, hoping for a message, a clue, anything that might bring me closer to the truth. Friends started noticing the change in me. One close friend finally asked if everything was okay at home. I wanted to tell him, but the words got stuck. How do you explain the ache of uncertainty? How do you say that a simple WhatsApp status turned into a question mark that wouldn't go away? I nodded and said everything was fine, but inside, I was crumbling. At the same time, I began reflecting on my own role in all this. Was I too caught up in work? Had I stopped paying attention? Maybe she was feeling neglected, unheard. The idea hurt, but I couldn't ignore it. I wanted to believe that if we talked honestly, we could fix this. But every attempt to reach out was met with walls. There was also the subtle shift in her behavior I couldn't shake. She started spending more time on her phone, locking it when she wasn't around. Sometimes she left the room to take calls or reply to messages. I told myself it might be stress or something trivial, but a part of me feared it was more. One night, she stayed out late, saying she was with a friend. The excuse felt thin, but I didn't want to accuse her without proof. Still, the distance between us grew, and I felt powerless. The home we had built together no longer felt like a safe place. It felt like a battlefield where words were weapons and silence was a shield. I kept wondering when the truth would come out, or if it ever would. Would she open up, or was she already planning to walk away? The questions haunted me, and I couldn't find any peace. The tension was like a quiet storm, growing stronger but hidden beneath the surface. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog thick enough to swallow everything familiar. Each morning, I woke up hoping today would be different, hoping she would say something, anything, to break the silence, but the routine stayed the same. The distance between us wasn't just physical. It was like a wall built of unspoken words and unanswered questions. I caught myself watching her closely, searching for clues in the way she moved, the tone of her voice, the flicker in her eyes. Every detail seemed loaded with meaning, but I couldn't quite grasp what it all meant. One evening, as we sat in the living room, her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it quickly, but this time, I saw something I hadn't before, a hesitation. For a moment, her eyes met mine, flickering with something I couldn't name. Was it guilt? Fear? Or just exhaustion from carrying secrets? I wanted to reach out, to tell her that I was there, that we could work through whatever it was. But the words caught in my throat. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake thinking about how things had shifted so suddenly. What started as a cryptic WhatsApp status had become a silent storm raging between us. I thought about the moments when she smiled but didn't quite seem happy, the nights when she stayed up late texting someone, the times she seemed distant even when we were together. Each memory added weight to the suspicion gnawing at me. I found myself standing at a crossroads. Should I confront her directly? Or should I wait and hope she would open up on her own? The fear of what I might hear held me back. What if there was someone else? What if the truth was worse than my imagination? Still, the uncertainty was unbearable. I couldn't keep living like this, trapped between hope and doubt. One afternoon, while she was in the kitchen, I noticed her phone left unlocked on the table. My heart pounded as I hesitated, torn between respecting her privacy and wanting to find answers. I told myself I wasn't looking for secrets but for the truth, something that might explain the growing distance, the coldness I felt. For a few seconds, I stared at the screen, then forced myself to look away. The battle inside me was overwhelming. Our conversations became shorter, more strained. When we did talk, it felt like we were circling around an invisible issue neither of us wanted to name. I tried to remind myself of the good times, the love that had once felt so real and solid. But now, every moment seemed fragile, like a glass about to shatter. Then came the day when I overheard a phone call she thought I wasn't listening to. Her voice was softer, quieter than usual, but I caught a few words like, "Meet later," and, "Don't tell him." My heart sank. The doubts I'd tried to ignore crashed down like a tidal wave. I felt betrayed, confused, and lost all at once. That night, the tension in the house was unbearable. We barely spoke, but the silence screamed louder than any argument. I wanted to confront her, to demand the truth, but I was scared of what it would mean for us. Would she get angry? Would she leave? Or would she finally tell me what was really going on? The weight of unspoken secrets pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. I realized that whatever happened next could change everything. Our marriage, our future, and the life we had built were all hanging by a thread. I knew I couldn't avoid the truth any longer, but the moment of confrontation filled me with dread. Just when I thought I had braced myself for the worst, life threw me another curve I never saw coming. The tension was already suffocating, every moment heavy with questions and silent accusations, but then something happened that shifted everything, and made the stakes feel even higher. It was a moment that would change how I saw everything about our relationship and the secrets she was hiding. A few days after overhearing that suspicious phone call, I decided to take a different approach. Instead of pressing her directly, I tried to piece together what was really going on behind the scenes. I started paying closer attention to the small details, the patterns in her messages, the timing of her calls, even the places she said she was going. I was desperate for answers but still wanted to believe there could be a reasonable explanation. Then, out of nowhere, I found a message on her phone. It wasn't meant for me, but there it was, plain and clear, a conversation with someone I didn't recognize. The tone was friendly but carried an unusual intimacy. They talked about plans and frustrations, about feelings that seemed complicated and raw. It wasn't outright betrayal, but it was enough to make my heart race and doubts spiral out of control. I felt like I was watching a part of her life unfold that I had no right to see, but also couldn't look away from. That's when the second twist hit. I confronted her, not with anger, but with confusion and pain. I told her I'd seen the messages and needed to understand what was happening. For the first time in weeks, she didn't brush me off or roll her eyes. Instead, her face changed. Something broke in her expression, a mix of relief and fear. She finally started to talk, but the story wasn't what I expected. She admitted that she had been struggling with feelings she didn't know how to deal with. The person in those messages wasn't just a friend. They represented something missing in our relationship: attention, understanding, connection. She wasn't sure where those feelings would lead or what they meant, but she was scared. Scared of hurting me, scared of losing herself, and scared of admitting how lost she felt. This confession didn't fix anything. It only made the situation more complex. Suddenly, the quiet distance between us had a new meaning. It wasn't just about a WhatsApp status or secret calls. It was about real emotions tangled in fear and uncertainty. The stakes were higher than ever. Now, it wasn't just about trust being broken. It was about figuring out if our marriage could survive the invisible cracks that were spreading beneath the surface. The next days were a whirlwind of emotions. We tried to talk, but every conversation seemed to circle back to the same questions. How did we get here? Could we find a way back? Was there still love strong enough to hold us together? Or had the foundation been too damaged? At the same time, I started to wonder about my own role in the story. Had I missed signs? Was I too focused on work or distracted by my own life to notice her pain? The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just her struggle, it was ours. And if we wanted to survive, we had to face the uncomfortable truth together. But even with that new understanding, the tension didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger. The fear of losing her, the uncertainty about what lay ahead, and the question of whether forgiveness was possible made every day feel like walking on a tightrope. The night I finally decided to confront everything was the longest night of my life. We sat across from each other in the quiet living room, the air thick with tension and unspoken fears. I could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the weight she had been carrying for so long. There was no hiding anymore. We both knew this moment would change everything. I asked her to be honest, really honest, without holding back. She took a deep breath and started to speak, her voice trembling but steady. She admitted that the messages, the late nights, the distance, they were all symptoms of something bigger. She was confused about her feelings, about what she wanted from life, and about us. It wasn't about someone else being better or more exciting. It was about her struggling with herself. For years, she said, she felt trapped in a role she wasn't sure she wanted anymore. A wife, a partner, someone expected to be perfect. The WhatsApp status, the silence, it was her way of asking for help without knowing how to say it. Hearing her words shattered the wall I had built around my own doubts and fears. I realized that the real problem wasn't betrayal, but a lack of connection, understanding, and communication. We talked for hours, peeling back layers of hurt, regret, and hope. I shared my own fears, how scared I was of losing her, how lost I felt in the silence. For the first time in a long while, we were truly open. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't perfect, but it was real. The tension didn't disappear overnight, but the cracks started to close, replaced by something fragile but promising. Just when I thought we were on the path to healing, she surprised me again. There was one more secret she hadn't told me, something she'd kept hidden because she didn't want to burden me. She revealed that a few months ago, she had been offered a job opportunity in another city, a chance to start fresh and escape everything that felt suffocating. She never told me because she wasn't sure what she wanted yet, and the thought of leaving tore her apart. This revelation hit me like a shockwave. The distance, the silence, it wasn't just emotional. She had been wrestling with a decision that could change our lives forever. The thought of her leaving filled me with a mix of desperation and determination. I didn't want to lose her, but I also knew I couldn't force her to stay. In that moment, we faced the hardest question: could we rebuild what was broken? Could love survive when the future was uncertain? We didn't have all the answers, but we made a promise: to be honest, to listen, and to fight for us if it was still possible. The climax of our story wasn't a dramatic confrontation or a sudden breakup. It was a quiet, painful truth that forced us to confront ourselves and each other. The WhatsApp status that started it all was no longer just a message on a screen. It was a symbol of the cracks we needed to fix. As I thought we were finally finding some clarity, one last twist came when I decided to check her phone again, this time, with her permission. What I saw wasn't another secret conversation or hidden plans. Instead, it was a photo she had saved weeks ago, an old picture of us laughing, happy and carefree. Next to it, she had written a simple note: Remember this. Find us again. After seeing that photo and reading her note, something shifted inside me. It wasn't magic or an instant fix, but a gentle reminder of why we had started this journey together in the first place. That picture captured a moment of genuine happiness, a time when life felt simpler and our connection was strong. It reminded me that even in the toughest times, love doesn't disappear, it just gets buried beneath fear, misunderstandings, and silence. We both knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Healing takes time, and rebuilding trust is a slow process. But we made a decision to face it together, with honesty and patience. We started by talking more openly, sharing our fears and hopes without judgment. Sometimes the conversations were hard, and sometimes emotions ran high. But each talk chipped away at the walls that had grown between us. I realized that the WhatsApp status that had caused so much confusion was actually a cry for help, a sign that she needed me to listen differently. It wasn't just about words on a screen, it was about the importance of paying attention to the little things, to feelings that don't always come out clearly. In relationships, it's often the silent signals that matter most. We also made space for ourselves as individuals. She decided to take the new job opportunity but with a different plan, one that allowed us to stay connected while giving her room to grow. We talked about boundaries, trust, and how to support each other's dreams without losing what we had. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it felt like a fresh start. Looking back, I see how easy it was to get caught in assumptions and silence. I learned that communication isn't just about speaking, it's about truly listening and being willing to see things from another perspective. I also understood that no marriage is immune to struggles, but how we handle those struggles defines the strength of the bond. For anyone watching who might be going through something similar, I want to say this: don't ignore the small signs. Don't wait for a WhatsApp status or a moment of silence to become a mountain. Reach out, ask questions, and be willing to be vulnerable. It's scary, but it's necessary. Love isn't just about the good times, it's about weathering the storms together. Our story didn't end with a fairy tale, but it ended with a promise: to keep trying, to keep talking, and to keep believing in each other. That's the real lesson here. Relationships are messy, complicated, and sometimes painful, but they can also be beautiful when we choose to work through the hard parts. As for that WhatsApp status, it's still there, but now it means something different to me. It's a reminder of how a few words can reveal so much, and how paying attention can change everything. Thank you for listening to our story. If you've ever felt the sting of doubt or the weight of silence, remember you're not alone. Sometimes, the hardest journeys lead to the most meaningful destinations. And sometimes, love is found in the places we least expect, but only if we're willing to look.